Welcome to Hollywood. Prepare to attack. Select your hero. Attack commences in 30 seconds.
Remember your training, and we'll get through this just fine.
Attack commences. Capture objective A.
The enemy is here. Enemy turret ahead.
Health restored.
Enemy turret destroyed.
Move back. Back online. Thanks for the assist. Get turret detected. Turret detected. Move back.
Enemy turret ahead. Watch your face.
Clearing the area.
Enemy turret destroyed.
Enemy turret ahead. Justice. Turret detected. Raptora systems
My ultimate
online.
is charging.
A turret lies before us. It is quite
unseen. Experience nothingness. Fire in the house!
Turret detected. Raptora systems online.
a turret lies in our way.
I still have... My servants never die.
systems online. Join me. Damage increase. Thanks for the assist. Let's get the payload moving again. I'll wait. My servants never die. Enemy turret destroyed. Let's get you back in the fight. Clear the area.
I'm moving the payload.
Did someone call for me? I am empowering. Target down. Enemy back in action.
The payload rests idle. I have taken the payload.
Cease your resistance. 60 seconds remaining.
Got you in my sights.
Raptora systems online.
Hello, enchanting your
Thanks for the assist. My servants never die.
The payload must
Clearing the area.
Enemy turret ahead. Watch your back.
Experience
Arriving at Watchpoint Gibraltar. Prepare to attack. Select your hero. Attack commences in 30 seconds.
I'm thinking
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attack commencing. Escort the payload.
Payload's moving. Let's make sure someone's making it.
Is my will.
짜증나.
With every death comes honor. With honor, redemption.
The payload must be moved. Join you.
Surrender to my will. Thank you for your contributions.
Assistance will be appreciated.
Experience truth.
minor setback.
The cavalry's here!
Help me watch from afar.
Experience tranquility.
I'm escorting the payload. Let's keep it moving.
Only 60 seconds. Arriving at Watchpoint Gibraltar. Prepare your defenses. Select your hero.
Build them up, break them down.
Executing pre-combat routine. Optimizing strategy.
Attackers incoming in 30 seconds.
Let's get started.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming.
to work. I have big plans for you. Turret under fire. My turret.
Sniper, keep your eyes peeled.
I'm ready to initiate self-destruct sequence.
Ready to work.
Enemy turret ahead. Enemy turret's not gonna bother us anymore.
I foresee great things for you. Enemy turret down. I'm ready to unleash the molten turret under fire. My turret. I'm overloading.
Enemy turret ahead.
Such potential. Much better.
Enemy turret ahead.
It's better to be the hammer than the nail. Back to the drawing board.
So you guys probably caught my recent video unboxing the brand new OnePlus 6. Actually, I unboxed the two versions that were available at that point. A mirror black, also a midnight black, but at that time, I kind of had my eyes set on a different model, the silk white, because I had sort of seen the development of the OnePlus 6. I actually had the chance to visit the production facility. If you haven't seen that video, you should go check that out. So I've got that one right over here. But I figured, hey, if I'm gonna unbox every single version and compare them all.
What you're looking at right here are two of the best smartphones on the market right now. The OnePlus 6 and the Galaxy S9 Plus. They're also two of my personal favorites as they both offer nice feature sets, yet very different user experiences. With the S9, you've got a phone stuffed to the brims with features, as it usually is with Samsung phones, and with the 6, you're getting that classic OnePlus clean, simple, straightforward user experience. Now the question here is, which one of these is the better pickup? So the S9 Plus will run you about $800, and if you do some hunting online, you can find it for even less than that, especially with the latest addition to the Galaxy line, the Note 9. The 6, on the other hand, can be picked up for just over $500. While the two have totally different price tags, they actually have a good amount in common. For one, their designs. OnePlus stepped their game up with the 6, implementing their own glass and metal frame sandwich, and now it feels very similar to the S9 Plus. Unfortunately though, the 6 lacks wireless charging, which is one of the S9's best features in my opinion. But overall, in terms of hardware, they are in the top tier with their attractive, very well put together, comfortable in the hand, premium builds. And unfortunately, since I'm known to scratch up glassback phones, I like keeping mine safe. Shout out to D-Brand, link to their skins is in the description. The hardware similarities continue with the camera and the fingerprint reader layout. They both have headphone jacks on the bottom, and they even have similar internals. They both have the latest and greatest processor, 6GB of RAM in their base models, and they even have similar battery capacities at 3300 and 3500 mAh respectively. So where exactly do these phones differentiate? Well, like I said before, the S9 is loaded with features. We're talking fast wireless charging, IP68 water and dust resistance, expandable storage, great sounding stereo speakers, a stunning super high resolution curved notchless OLED display, all things the OnePlus 6 does not offer. While the 6 may not have the same heavily decorated feature set, it still has a very nice AMOLED display of its own. It has the alert slider, which is an underrated smartphone feature in my opinion, and one of its biggest features, and probably its most important feature, is its software experience. If you ask around, you'll hear a lot of tech enthusiasts say that the 6's user experience is nothing short of pure excellence. Oxygen OS has become a favorite for many, myself included. It's fast, it's fluid, clean, and it has its own share of features and tweaks. While Samsung's software has seen improvement over the years in terms of decreased bloatware and increased speed, Samsung still tends to lag behind in the Android update category. It doesn't seem like OnePlus has this issue. In fact, the OnePlus 6 was one of the few eligible devices for the Android P beta program. Like we saw earlier, the phones have similar internals, so how does that translate into everyday usage? Well, I think it's safe to say that the 6 wins the performance department. You're looking at the closest you can get to a lag-free, stutter-free experience. Everything loads quickly, switching in between apps is fast, scrolling, gaming, multitasking, everything, it's all really good. RAM management is solid too, and battery life is really good. I get well above average in terms of screen on time. But don't get it twisted. The 6 may be light on its feet, but the S9 is no slouch when it comes to performance. I've had my S9 Plus since launch and I haven't had any big performance issues. Very, and I mean very few stutters, very rare hiccups here and there, nothing close to what I've experienced on phones from the past. My S9 Plus still flies and chews through daily tasks. RAM management is good and battery life is really solid too, falling just a tad short of the 6's performance. Now getting into the cameras, and this is going to be an interesting one because again, we're talking about a $300 difference between these two phones, so they can't be that close in terms of camera performance, can they? If you assumed the S9's cameras would be better because they're on the more expensive phone and it only makes sense, well in this case you'd be right. The S9 Plus definitely has the better set of cameras straight up. However, the 6 isn't so incredibly behind. In fact, in normal, well-lit conditions, the two are very comparable, and there will even be times where you can't tell which phone took what shot. A recent OnePlus 6 update offered improved color reproduction, clarity, and high dynamic range, among other things. See, the fact that these two phones are so comparable yet so far apart in terms of price really speaks volumes, and it begs the question, is it really worth putting up the extra cash for the S9 Plus over the OnePlus 6? If you're looking for a phone with a bunch of features you won't even know what to do with, but nice to have features in addition to all of the things I've already mentioned, things like the loads of software treats and tweaks that would take me forever to get through, tack on a top 2 or top 3 smartphone camera, a top 2 display, then go for the S9 Plus. If you're not looking for a big list of features and you want something clean, simple, easy to use, yet something that's not completely lacking in the feature department, you want to save a few $100 and you want fast software updates, then go for the OnePlus 6. I've used both phones extensively, and I love them, but if I had to choose one to use for the next year or so, that would not be an easy choice for me at all. But for the sake of the video and for the sake of my SIM card's next home for a little while, I'm gonna choose the OnePlus 6. As someone who's been a huge fan of the Nexus and now Pixel line with pure, clean user experiences, the OnePlus 6 is the closest I can get to that in a modern day smartphone that isn't a Pixel. Honestly, you can't go wrong with either phone, they're that great. But of course, people have different tastes and different use cases. All in all, I feel this type of cross-tier competition is great for the Android smartphone world. These phones are getting better and better, which is a good thing for us consumers. So which one would you pick? Let us know down below in the comments. As always, we love to hear your feedback. But that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to hit that like button, subscribe to the Android Police channel if you're new. I will talk to you guys later, and thank you so much for watching.
This is a look at my morning with the Samsung Galaxy S9. I wake up, check the time on my always on OLED display, and hit the snooze button, just like I did with my S8. I eat breakfast and read the news, silently appreciating the tall 18.5:9 aspect ratio, just like I did with my S8. I grab my keys and jacket and ask Bixby what my schedule for the day. oh man, no, I'm just kidding about that last one. But seriously, as someone who legitimately loves the Galaxy S8, what exactly do the S9 and the S9 Plus, apparent carbon copies of the last gen, really change? And does any of it matter? Let's find out. After I tell you, today's video is brought to you by Zotac. Zotac's Mech 1 gaming PC is an ultra-slim desktop PC featuring a sleek, robotic-style design. Check it out at the link below to learn more. Okay, so here are the improvements to the S9 family on paper. You get a faster octa-core processor of the Snapdragon or Exynos variety, depending on your region, some more memory, but only on the Plus, a brighter screen, a bump to maximum cellular data rates, and a camera with two aperture sizes, and then all of this other stuff is basically the same, with some of it, like thickness, appearing to get worse. So this means, by my calculations here, the days of big generational improvements to cell phones, these are officially over. However, unlike a lot of the tech press, I am not going to crucify Samsung over this.
I'm Eric Voss, and the Walking Dead series has said goodbye to Rick Grimes, but not in the way we expected. Here we were expecting Mark to get killed off like everyone else does, but instead we got something closer to the way Itchy and Scratchy said goodbye to Poochie.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
Hey, that wasn't supposed to happen. Those Sphinx double-crossed me.
And now we're learning about Andrew Lincoln continuing to play Rick in 3 Walking Dead movies on AMC? What the hell's going on? Now, we haven't been able to dedicate enough resources to cover this show weekly anymore, but this is such a huge turn of events and such an interesting episode of television that I have to break it down. And spoiler warning if you haven't seen the episode yet. Okay, let's start with the big question that I'm sure is on your mind. What the just happened? Well, at the end of the last episode, Rick was left for dead, impaled on rebarb as walkers were closing in. Now, we've known Andrew Lincoln's days on the show were numbered, and there was some interesting symbolism with Rick on the white horse. Like in the book of Revelation in the Bible, there are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and the 4th rider rides a pale horse, bringing with him death. But Rick escapes the walkers in this episode. He stays just out of reach, but still bleeds out and slips in and out of consciousness. Ultimately, he clears away the walkers by blowing them up on a bridge, and he makes his friends think he died. But he washes up ashore in front of Anne, formerly Jadis, who radios her contact in the helicopter and airlifts Rick out of there.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
So where is Rick going? This is where things get a bit harder to explain. This helicopter mystery has been teased by the show since the very first episode when Rick heard a helicopter echoing through downtown Atlanta. This final episode brought things full circle. Here Rick is again, alone on horseback, chasing helicopters. And if you listen closely, this episode ended with the same music as the music that ended the first episode. It's called Space Junk by Wang Chung. The same way that episode signaled Rick transitioning from solitude to a broader world of mysterious survivors, this episode is meant as a turning point as well. But a turning point to what? Well, the helicopter resurfaced a few times last season. Rick spotted it gliding overhead, and Jadis/Anne summoned it when she briefly had Negan tied down in the junkyard. This season, Anne has been seen talking to this helicopter guy on the radio, cryptically referring to people as A's and B's. We do know that Anne previously kept Rick in a shipping container marked A, and now she told the helicopter guy that Rick is a B. The helicopter guy prefers A's. He tells Jadis that she needs to bring him an A if she wants to be airlifted out of there. And a few episodes back, she told Gabriel that she has been trading people for supplies. A's seem to be more valuable. She told Gabriel, all this time I thought you were a B, and then she bops him on the head, and then later ties him down and tries to attack him with a walker the same way she almost did with Negan. Now, there are a few possibilities for what this means. The showrunner, Angela Kang, was asked if A indicates a leader and B a follower, and she said it was a very strong maybe. But I don't see how Gabriel is more of a leader than Rick. The best explanation I found is that A could refer to an infected human who hasn't turned yet, like a strong, willful survivor type, which this new community would use for experimentation. Meanwhile, B could be someone they consider to be an otherwise valuable member of their new society. Like maybe Anne previously liked Gabriel and she wanted to keep him as a B, but instead she ended up shoving a walker at him, perhaps to bite him and to infect him, as she tried to do with A-type Negan. And at some point she planned to infect Rick for testing, but maybe now she only wants to recruit Rick to be a living, breathing, clean human to help their community. This is really the only rationalization that makes sense to me at this point. Like, think about it. Infected humans that haven't turned yet are really the most rare type of people. Like, they exist in this unique in-between state for a brief period of time that would necessitate a helicopter airlift. Now, some are saying this could be inspired by the Commonwealth in the Walking Dead comics. The Commonwealth is another outside society that the survivors come across. They have a similar class categorization. In that case, it was more of a white collar versus blue collar distinction. But all this is what I assume the 3 Rick movies will explore. In a very guarded interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Scott Gimple implied this new society could pose a threat, suggesting this new arc would pose a challenge to Rick in these movies. All while the remaining survivors on the TV show will deal with the Whisperers, who will be introduced after this time jump on the show. So I think these movies would explore Rick and Anne in this new strict society. Perhaps one that's like quarantined somewhere in the outside world, that's working on efforts to research a cure. It's kind of like the story that we saw in 28 Days Later in the I Am Legend movie. But it is clear that Rick's storyline on the TV series is finished, because this episode was filled with Rick experiencing unconscious flashbacks to key past moments. So what did Rick's visions mean? Rick began this episode in his old hospital room from the very first shot of the series, standing over his own body as he lay in a coma. Outside, the birds flock in a swarm. This actually echoes the image from the opening moments of the first episode this season. And when he looks back, they transform into helicopters, foreshadowing his salvation at the end of the episode. Later in the cabin, Rick finds a deer head mounted on the wall. Now, deers have seemed to be stalking mocking Rick throughout the series. There's the one he made Michonne give to the Saviors in season 7, and that goofy CGI deer at the carnival grounds, and of course the deer that Carl saw right before he got shot in season 2. And this takes Rick back to his arrival in Atlanta in the first episode. Here he runs into, of all people, Shane! Suddenly Rick's back in the car with his old cop buddy, who he killed, and they're looking at this flipped car. This is actually a callback to Rick's final moments before his coma in the very beginning, when that third criminal for the flipped car shot him. Ghost Shane asks about his daughter, which I interpret as Rick's guilty subconscious manifesting as his old friend, helping Rick accept the idea that Judith isn't more his family than the others he would have to leave behind. All this is to make it easier for himself to let go. Shane also makes callbacks to past Rick moments, referring to the asshole in the church with the red machete, and referring to when Rick bit Joe in the neck in season 4. Later, Rick reunites with Herschel on the farm, who counsels him to realize it's not his responsibility to protect everyone forever, and that he's already given so much. Rick later finds himself back in the hospital at the famous "Don't Open Dead Inside" doors, or "Don't Dead Open Inside" doors. This is from the first episode, but here "don't" has been crossed out, as if to invite Rick to cross over into the world of the dead. And in this world of the dead, there's a field of bodies that Rick crosses over, and it's filled with people in Rick's life, both alive and dead. And for some reason, Sasha, not his wife and son, is the one to deliver the final message. Cool. At the end, when Rick says, "I found them," before blowing the bridge, he's talking about his family. He found his family, the people most important to him, the people he can comfortably leave behind to look after his fake daughter, Judith, as he flies back to his home planet to discover what comes after. But my question for you guys is, are you more excited to see the survivors face the Whisperers, or Rick face this new community? Comment down below with your thoughts, and follow New Rockstars on Twitter and Instagram.